and welcome to the Hublife Podcast. Today, joining me and Phil are Rebecca White, who is the CEO and founder of Your Own Place, and we've got Surya Campbell, who is the Lead Facilitator. Well, we are excited that you lovely ladies are here today because we've got some exciting news. And that is that Your Own Place is going to be working with us at Thetford Food Bank. And so over the next coming months, we're going to see you guys more in our food bank sessions and looking forward to that going forward. So exciting times. So I'm going to let you kick off with all the questions, I think.
Yeah, well, before we get into that, obviously, just to frame it, like we were talking earlier, you came to our food bank session and we had a little chat beforehand about what the podcast is about, generally speaking, and just trying to explore the idea of ending the need for food banks. And so we want to learn about Your Own Place today, an award-winning social enterprise whose mission is to prevent homelessness. And so we thought as a big jigsaw piece in the puzzle of solving, ending the need for food bank. And so what would be great initially, because some people at home wouldn't have ever heard of Your Own Place, and so what would be great if you could sort of give the viewers a little background on the beginnings, like the genesis of Your Own Place. And I'm looking at you, Rebecca, really for this, being the founder of it. And why did you start it? Like, some of that would be great to understand why it started before we even understand what it is, perhaps.
Sure. How long have you got?
As long as you take, until the techie people need to go home.
Yeah.
So we just celebrated our 10th birthday, didn't we? So we were 10 years old in October. So I started Your Own Place back in 2013. I was working for the local authority at Norfolk County Council in children's services. And I've done, I guess, a variety of things before that. I've been a school teacher. I've worked in...
What did you teach? Don't say children.
Children. Russian and German.
Wow.
So that kept me quite busy. And then straight after that, really, I went to work in homelessness in South East London. So I was working for a charity which has a local presence here, actually, Catch 22, and working in supported accommodation, and from there into resettlement for young people coming out of custody, and from there into what they called guns, gang and knife crime projects, also in South East London, before coming back to Norwich, to Norfolk. Your Own Place started life as a young people's organisation. You are more likely to be homeless if you're under 35, so that felt sensible as a prevention organisation to target our work at that particular group. But really, I'd seen that wherever I'd worked, whether it was with young people leaving care, whether it was young people leaving prison, people in transitional situations that didn't have a safety net. So I boil it all down to this safety net, that through no fault of their own, people often won't have the safety net of cash and or connections, and that the absence of either or both of those two things means that the wheels come off very quickly and very dramatically. For those of us that have those safety nets, whether that's a parent at the end of the phone or a bank balance, you can put things right. But when you don't have those things go very, very badly wrong. And one manifestation of that is homelessness. So it really is just one manifestation. And for me, that's just entrenched in a deep inequality. It's no virtue of mine that I had parents. I can't take any credit for that. I just did have that, and not everybody does. So that's really where Your Own Place comes from. It comes from a place of wanting, in the jargon, it's targeted prevention. We want to work with people who, as I say, objectively, through no fault of their own, lack that safety net, and put in place as much as we can so that when things do get sticky, because everybody's life gets sticky, people have got the tools, the knowledge, the confidence, the resilience, the connections, the networks, the safety net to be able to get back on track and not lose their home.
So why I'm going to dig deeper, why found Your Own Place? Where does that drive come from? Because obviously you've been involved in other charities. Where did the energy or the impetus come from to start something local? Because it's Norwich based, isn't it?
It's Norwich based, but we do work in Brighton. We're now working here. We're working in HMP Peterborough. So we're quite ambitious and innovative.
Why the start of something new? Is it like a hole you saw, or where did that? Because not everyone does that sort of thing.
No, and I guess it sort of starts to get quite personal, really. A number of reasons. I'm a natural misfit. I'm a natural maverick. I'm a natural sort of mucker-abouter. If somebody says do X, you can be pretty sure I'll do Y.
Oh, we're going to like you.
We're going to get on Jessica right.
That's a natural part of my personality. I think thanks to the safety net that I grew up with, I have sort of fundamental good self-esteem and confidence, which means I back myself, so I could go and do it and figure out how I do it along the way. One of the best bits of advice I got at the start from somebody was, you don't have to have all the T's crossed and the I's dotted to give it a go, and that was fundamental actually in just giving something quite rubbish at the start a go.
Yeah, and I suppose like looking forward, if you knew all the T's and I's that needed dotting and crossing, you probably wouldn't set out.
I would have never done it. It's like a friend of mine who I remember talking about having babies, and she said, I'm just waiting for the right moment, I'm just waiting till I've got enough money in my bank.
And I'm like, okay,
but it was such a sort of interesting approach to having it all planned, and so I don't know where I was going with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, not having to have everything in place. So I think it was that, and then there was just the other bit, which was really, really honest, which is that I'd had this amazing career in London. I've been in London in the noughties, where it just felt like there were so many opportunities. The Labour government was throwing money at the voluntary sector to solve knife crime, basically, following the death of Damilola Taylor, and we worked on those projects, and we worked in those bits of London. And to be absolutely honest, I moved back to Norfolk, and I didn't do the maths on any of that, which was, I'm going to have fewer options for my career now. I don't know what I'm going to do next. So at a selfish level, I created a job for myself that excited me.
And I do remember reading in one of your blogs, Rebecca, that you wrote that you didn't want anyone else to be your boss. You wanted to be your own boss.
Yeah, I've had some good bosses, I've had some average bosses, and I like making decisions, and I like being in charge.
Nothing wrong with that.
I apologise for that.
I pretend I'm the boss, but...
That's right, we both know it, so that's cool. That's good.
Well, maybe you're a better place to answer this perhaps, but can you give an overview of the services you offer, like generally across the it's not a charity technically, is it? It's a
social enterprise.
Yeah, and that's a really important distinction actually. So Rebecca chose to set up a social enterprise as opposed to a charity or a business, and she chose that model really specifically, and that was one of the things that drew me to Your Own Place. Is it's not a charity based on, we were talking earlier about the funding model, that you need to complete applications, chase money in a way, really make what you offer to fit what is available to be funded, and then at some point that funding then runs out, and then you have to pivot and start again. So Rebecca really wanted to find something, and do come in if I'm incorrect here, but wanted to find something with more staying power and resilience, which means that we could build a model and a service and a product that would have consistency and reliability, and we could take that into different sectors, into different areas, but with a core of values and services that ties all of our projects together.
No, that's absolutely bang on, and I think there are other elements to it as well, which, I've got nothing against charities. Right now, they're the backbone of our country, but it was also something about equity, because for me, Your Own Place was about creating an equitable organisation, and I really believe that people don't want handouts, and I wanted to set up an organisation that mirrored that, because I believe that as an organisation supporting people in difficult situations, we deserve better than handouts. So I wanted to kind of echo that with the structure of the organisation. It's a not-for-private profit, so it's a limited company by guarantee with an asset lock, and that means we can make a profit. And I don't think profit is a bad thing if it's for purpose. And our constitution says that 100% of our profit goes back into our mission, so nobody's running off to Barbados. So there are lots of reasons for being a social enterprise.
So the general overview of the actual practices that...
Yeah, what do we do? What
Yeah.
does it,
What does it look like?
Yeah, exactly. What does it look like? Okay, so when I started at Your Own Place, which was 2 years ago, I, at the moment, and what I really enjoyed about how we work at Your Own Place is that we can pivot and we can reinvent and we can do different things. So when I joined, we were working really specifically on a project that I was brought on to deliver with 4 housing associations to work with their existing tenants around areas of money and housing to ensure that they could sustain their tenancies. And we were working with people of all ages, so we were driving all over the county and down into Suffolk as well, working through supported accommodation and in different community centres as well to work with those tenants and build their resilience around money and housing. So that's just one of the projects that we were doing. But we can take those same skills around around, as Rebecca mentioned, building people's skills, their knowledge, their confidence, and we can take them into different areas, different sectors. So we're working also in HMP Peterborough, working with guys who are about to be released, who maybe haven't managed a tenancy for some time, or the last time that they did, it was in very different circumstances, or maybe not at all. And they're at a much higher risk of homelessness. So we can bring those skills and those values into that situation and bring value there. We also have worked in schools, working with people, yes, little people, children.
They're like people, aren't they?
And working with employability and connecting them with the skills that they need to build their resilience as they move through education and into a working world. So those are just an example of some of the projects that we've done. And then our work in food hubs and food banks is another iteration of that. So connecting people with their skills and confidence to create those safety nets. And it's not that we're teaching people things or telling people things that they don't necessarily already know. It may be that we have some information that we can partake, but also it's about encouraging people to share that information with each other. So we work with people one-on-one, but we also work with them in groups, in small groups and workshops, encouraging them to share their knowledge, to build that resilience, to share between themselves. So it's not us like standing up at front telling them what to do, but them talking about their lives, people talking about their lives.
But generally focused on skills of finance and how that relates to housing as well. But,
exactly.
And so, excuse me. So, what is your, and maybe you haven't got a typical, because we don't have a typical, but do you have a typical client? Like you said, you're more likely to be male, young, but are you more likely to be male or like you said, coming out of prison? Are there any typical male or something that, like the stats drive a particular cohort of people that are more in danger of being homeless?
I mean, I'd say no. And yes, when Rebecca started Your Own Place, it was very much in working with young people, but we've diversified because we've seen that there isn't one person. I think we're seeing that more and more, particularly in our work in food hubs. There can be an interest of like defining a particular demographic or a cohort, but what you've always said is everyone's just a paycheck away from this crisis point.
Yeah, and that's the reason I asked, because probably the same with food bank clients in the general populace of maybe some people's views about it, and they might have the same view of people who are homeless or at risk of homelessness, have a particular clientele in mind, if you like. And so I like talking about to sort of break them barriers, because we've had lots of people who are homeless, basically living out of cars or in tents, and it is a mixed bag of people completely. Yeah. And so it's the same within your organisation generally then as well then.
Yeah, and it is a really difficult one to navigate, because when you do go for traditional funding or tenders or commissions, then they do want you to tick boxes and to label people, but we know it's an awful lot more complicated than that, and therefore being this innovative, dynamic organisation does enable us to flex to that.
And sometimes we really have to push up against that, because there is that interest we do a lot of work around managing our impact and reporting back on the effect that we have in the work that we do. And I definitely felt on some of the projects that we've worked on, there's a model, that's accepted in the way of how the work is framed. And it's a sort of beneficiary model, we've done this work, and look at how it has helped this person. And again and again, we go back and challenge that model. It's not that, yes, we're a factor, just like we're all interdependent and working together, but it's not us that has made this difference to this person. This person has made that difference, and we facilitated that.
You mentioned earlier about the newer partnerships, or lately partnershiping with food banks or food hubs, depending on where you are in the country. But so whereabouts? I think you're doing that with Norwich Food Bank as well. But if you can, let us know who you're working with in the county already and what that looks like. And then, like, obviously, you just come and saw one of our food bank sessions. We went to that before the podcast filming. But then maybe discuss how you might see yourself like integrating into Thetford Food Bank, because it's the conversations we've had. But how do you guys see that working? Because people think, well, how do you guys integrate with our clients? And so what does it look like at Norwich, and what could it look like in Thetford?
Don't always compare us to Norwich though.
No comparisons.
There is no comparison.
But I say a little about where it came from, and you can talk a bit more on the ground, I guess. I guess we saw the cost of living crisis coming down the tracks, and we're always keen to enable more people to benefit from what it is that we do. So it's been a big departure for us, and it's not been without its challenges, because our model before was much more intensive, whereas the nature of a food bank is we've got very short amounts of time, and we're really working on how we can compress what is quite a complex, involved delivery model into much shorter conversations, and Surya can definitely say a bit more about that. And so we got funding from Norwich Consolidated Charities for a year. We put a sort of business case together and said we want to work in 5 Norwich food banks and 1 social supermarket. And we want to just try the model. So that was really a pilot phase to sort of test things out. And then we're hoping to continue in most of those food banks. We also picked money up from Multiply through Norfolk County Council Department for Education to enable us to continue to work in 2 more centres in Norwich. Theirs is a literacy angle, but it's fine. We turn that into a sort of financial conversation angle. And then we're working with Saffron Housing Trust. So that's enabling us to work in a couple of food banks in South Norfolk. And then we're working with you guys, which is fantastic, over here in Thetford. So the model is, I think it's fair to say, it's evolving fast, but I fully expect us to be continuing to do it into the next financial year.
And you were saying, well, what does that look like? And in each food bank, it looks different. I don't know if you've had a chance to visit other food banks. I'm sure people who've come on here are coming from different food banks. And I'm just really struck in when I do visit different food banks is how they operate differently. Sometimes they're part of a community cafe. Sometimes they're part of a church, but not always. There can be a really clear flow through of, I really noticed that here, you guys are on a tight ship.
It was quiet today, unusually quiet today.
That's
though.
all right, we'll take that.
But I could see the framework, and I could see how that would really support, as well as Andy was saying, a volunteer that I met on the door, that you guys get really busy. And so that kind of layout and that clear messaging to people who are coming is really important, you know, especially people who've come for their first time. We do talk to people who express a bit of shame or embarrassment, or, not really knowing how it works, and to have people just meet them warmly, so welcoming. That is the biggest thing, really. That cup of tea, that smile, that, you're welcome, you're in the right place. And then in terms of how we integrate into that, again, it varies from food bank to food bank. Sometimes it's really clear. I can see how you guys have everything set up. Okay, you come in, get your voucher, and then maybe be directed over to another person to speak to, citizens advice, or we also work in the Norwich Food Bank with Shelter and with British Red Cross and some other organisations as well. And what we're finding is, because we're not an accredited advice organisation, we're quite proud of that. We don't want to, we don't do things for people or to people, we do things with them. So it's really about sitting down and understanding more of their situation. And as Rebecca said, it's not as intensive as we might be able to do on one of our 1 or 3 day workshops. But it's about establishing that rapport, those relationships, and just having a listening ear, asking what's the most important thing right now? How can we move towards a solution for that? And then also the opportunity to build on that relationship if they'd like to come back, either set up a time at that food bank again, or in another community space where we can have more of a deep dive into their finances and give them support.
Yeah, and I think as well, like for me, when I'm in the food bank, that relationship is key, because you're getting people to trust you, so they feel welcome if they need to come back. But if they leave and don't feel that trust or that support, it's going to make them feel uncomfortable to then want to come back again. And so it's that relationship is key, that connection, if you like. And that's what I've noticed when I've just seen you guys and the way you talk to people. I'm like, that's what is required to actually get people to trust someone who can help them
in a very short space of time as well.
Yeah,
because
it's
obviously
tricky.
we're trying to make it so that clients don't need to come back and back and back again. So we might only see them once or twice. So to be able to, go on them connections quite quickly is important. Like, we try and do that, and you guys are good. You're brilliant at it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know that, but even just with our volunteers.
Yeah.
So I see like having secure housing as an individual and as a family is like one of the staples of life, and stopping people needing to use the food bank. Ultimately, I think it's one of the biggest jigsaw pieces. Housing generally, it's maybe a bigger topic than we can talk about across a
one evening.
a 30-minute podcast. But In your experience, what is the knock-on effects for individuals or families that are either moving into homelessness or as a risk of homelessness? What are the knock-on effects in the rest of their life that then might lead them to need a food bank? So what happens in people's life when they're about to lose their house or made homeless?
Well, our vision is for everyone to have a safe and secure home, and Rebecca again chose that as our vision for exactly the reason that you're talking about. It's like just imagine not having a place to go back to, that you can shut the door, lock the door, and that's yours, you're safe. And so many people that we work with don't have that, or if they do, it's precarious. You know, I'm not sure how long that is going to last. Maybe they're in private rental, they could receive a Section 21 at any moment, and hopefully we were moving towards abolishing Section 21, but we know that that's just been postponed, more processes have been put in place. So even in the private rental section...
Can you just explain what Section 21 is for people who wouldn't know what that is?
Yeah, sorry. And actually, maybe Rebecca, I'll just turn to you here. You'd be able to articulate
just the right of a private landlord to evict you on a whim because they want to sell their property, because it's their asset, it's theirs, and therefore just to boot you out in a way that doesn't happen in social tenancies. So, yeah, and whilst for me, this is I'll be honest, I feel it as a sense of failure, but it's just one of the many challenges the funding challenges we face is the private rented sector, because of Section 21 and the cost of it, is one of the biggest drivers of homelessness. So when you look at the homelessness data, it's not social landlords evicting people. That's, for most social landlords, that's very much a last resort. They don't want to evict people. It looks bad. But private landlords do, until we stop that or tighten that up. And so, yeah, we want to work with more private landlords, or at least we want to find a way of working with the people they're booting out before they boot them out. But in terms of your question, yeah, I mean, Surya articulates it beautifully. You know, every day that I wake up, if the rain is pouring down outside, my first thought is, I know about the guy who's sleeping in the doorway at Marks and Spencer. I wonder how he's doing this morning, because I've got a roof over my head. And you only have to look at the fact that I think it's something like 48 is the average life expectancy of a man who sleeps rough, and to know the importance of having a roof over your head.
Yeah, it must impact every element of your life, from the social to the financial to holding down a job to bank accounts. Everything is so entwined, isn't it? Having a place of residence and for your soul as well, and mental health. And so I think it's so entwined, and trying to fix or move closer to fixing the problem within housing and homelessness, I think is a big jigsaw piece. So you said 10 years. When 10th birthday already, or coming soon?
28th of October it was.
Sorry, I would have brought a cake. Not that I can eat it, I'm on a diet. But so in that 10 years then, what has your impact been? Because like you said, you've got to give impact reports to people of how you've done and what impact you've made in different areas. But so what's the good news of what's been happening over the last 10 years, or maybe just the last couple of years if it's more relevant? And also, after that, maybe any particular challenges you're facing as well that you're having to sort of push through. I had written in my notes, like high Section 21 notices. I was ahead of the game there. But anything else that's challenging as well for you guys at the minute, particularly? But the good news first, what's been your impact over the 10 years and recently as well?
Well, Surya writes our annual impact report, so I'll hand over to you.
You're just going to pass it back to me! What I think our biggest impact, rather than giving you a number of how many people that we've worked with or how many organisations, I think it's been a combination of how much we've grown and diversified and been able to reach more people. So going from a very specific offer, which was working for people who'd had experience of care and leaving care and working with those people, and also in a community mentoring programme, we've grown that where we can now work with people who are coming out of prison, who are in social housing tenancies existing. We work online, so we've developed a digital offer so we can reach people even who aren't local to us. And it's really important to us that we take our values and that core offer and reach as many people as possible. Rebecca, do you have any key numbers or any key projects that were highlights for you of the last 10 years? Yeah,
we're a small organisation. We're a team of 10 in our 10th year, and we were a team of 1 when we started, So no 2 years have been the same, and So we're not some organisation that's suddenly multi-million pound and huge and has scaled at a rate of knots. And some of that's because there are huge challenges in doing that, and some of that is because I'm very wedded to the relationships first model, and I don't want to compromise quality and impact, and I haven't quite figured out how you scale at pace without compromising those things. And for as long as I'm in charge, I'm not going to compromise those things. What it means is we've worked with around 1,200 people, which in the grand scheme of things isn't loads and loads of people, but it is because of the quality, it is because of those relationships. And I have this sort of little mantra when I'm doing team induction, which is the only outcome that matters on day one is that the person wants to come back for day two. Now, that may not work for the funder's spreadsheet, but actually in the long term it means we can make a difference, because if we've not built that relationship, we've not made the cup of tea, we've not shaken the hand, we've not alleviated their anxiety, we've not put them at ease, forget it. We're not going to make any difference at all. And I think one of the biggest achievements is the extent to which all 10 members of the team absolutely embody that, and blow me away with how they just deploy those skills at every opportunity, and sort of have really embedded them in their practice and what we do. And I think that's one of the biggest achievements, really. But in terms of the impact, we've worked with 1,200 people across a whole range of services, settings, geographies, age ranges, and improved their confidence and improved their networks and improved their skills so that they can go on and navigate beyond us. Because ideally, it's not about us fixing things, it's not coming back to people to fix things, it's about people acknowledging, recognising and naming, actually I can do that. And that's when I read the feedback, I make a point of reading feedback every month to sit down. That I think those are the ones that bring the biggest smile to my face, is the person saying, I didn't realise how much I was doing right, and now I can do that again. And that's the point.
That's great.
You said there about scaling, and you said about reaching as many people as possible. And so, like, what are your hopes and plans then for the future of your own place? Expanding the reach or the depth of services or the scope of the projects in the future. What forget the problems to scaling, but what would you want particularly as the pioneer, if you like, of what would you see in 10 years' time? What would your dream be for your own place, other than all the problems fixed? Other than that,
we can't do that.
And
then I suppose I'll have to kill you when I say this, because I haven't sort of revealed any of our 24-25 strategy to anyone yet. But there are things we do really well that I want us to do more of. And we've kind of reverted a little bit recently, actually, which is quite interesting, having started life working with young people who are care experienced. One thing that really excites me as a social enterprise is that we're now working with John Lewis. Their Building Happier Futures programme means they're investing in young people who are care experienced and providing job opportunities. And they've commissioned us alongside to work with those particular young people to provide the housing, money and tenancy skills. And that's something we can do as a social enterprise, is work with corporates in that way, because we are a limited company and we think a bit differently. So that sort of thing really excites me. So I know we will be going into the new financial year having more conversations about how we can reach more young people with that particular model. So I'd like us to see us doing more of that. A third of young people who are care experienced will be homeless within 2 years of turning 18. That is just not good enough, and that is a group we should be working with. I feel a deep moral compulsion when you've got a model that works, that actually the driver is to get more of it out there. So I want to see us doing more of that. Equally, our work in the criminal justice system. Again, the stats are there in terms of sort of something like nearly 50% of people you'll see rough sleeping will have a criminal conviction. We should absolutely be working in that space. And we've got sort of various plans to work with other providers. It's all about partnership, and to work either as a subcontractor with other big providers, because we don't have a big footprint ourselves, but that can enable us to go into more prisons and to work with more people in those impossible situations. So I want us to continue to be targeted.
Yeah, I like that, being highly efficient, where you put your resources into the most problem places.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's how we make a difference.
Yeah. So if you could, though, would you roll out? I know you, with your personality type perhaps, and all the problems of scalability then, but would you, if possible, would you love to be able to go further afield, East Anglia, go national?
Definitely.
Like you said, copying and pasting that model that works.
And I've read a lot about social franchising. It doesn't have a great rep in the social enterprise sector. There haven't been a lot of successful social franchises exactly because of those challenges around quality and impact. Sort of 7 years ago when we got our office, we called it the training flat because we delivered a lot of our training there, and it's in central Norwich. And I had a simplistic, naive notion that we could replicate that, that, you know, why on earth wouldn't every city have one of these training flats in it where people could come and practice the skills because you can read an actual meter in it. I don't think that's a ridiculous idea. I still think that's a good idea. What's ridiculous is anybody paying for it. And then when we do work in HMP Peterborough and Brighton, we travel down there and stay in a hotel because what we don't have is a commission big enough to set up a team in those locations. So that would be, for me, the route to scale was that a hub and spoke model, that Norwich would remain the centre, because I'm a control freak, we control from the centre, but that doesn't mean we can't have a team in Manchester who are basically doing the same work up there. But you've got to have a commission big enough.
Okay, well, we asked the same last question to all the guests, which is there anything else you think we should be talking about that, like, as us as a food bank, that we should be talking about on the podcast with other people, or things society should be talking about with regard to ending the need for food bank? I know that's our job, but I'd like to get your views on it. And it's fine if you've covered everything that you think you can talk about that's within your remit, that's cool. We don't have to put it out. But if there's anything else you want to say and share about either your organisation or how food banks can end, any ideas, go for it.
Well, I just want to bring out the idea that is already being trumpeted by the Trussell Trust, the Essentials Guarantee. I just think that campaign around advocating for a change from the basic UC payment that's currently £85 a week, which is not covering the essentials, up to £120 a week. I think that kind of approach, looking at, in a way, it's sort of tied to, it's not the same as a universal basic income, but it's really looking at like what is necessary for someone to, and I was about to say the word survive, which I'd rather say the word thrive. I'd rather say the word live a full life. But I think that acknowledgement that actually, to some extent, it is about cash. It is about a certain amount that is needed for people to live, and an acknowledgement of that, and that brings in everything around the cost of living crisis, around being able to pay rent, about being able to afford food. I think we need to be really honest about that, the need to make that amount, you know, real and accessible for people.
You sound like a Trussell Trust spokesperson.
I know, you could.
I think it's a great campaign, and I think it's really important.
Yeah, I echo that. I think for me it comes back to our core purpose and place in the market, if you like, which is prevention. And we've lost sight of prevention. I don't see any discussion now in civil society, in central government, in local government about prevention, because we're in a crisis, and we're in a perma-crisis really from COVID onwards. And understandably, people want to ameliorate people's suffering by providing support, and I don't think we're any different to that. And daily, like you, I'm sure we see people in appalling situations and we want to help. But tightened budgets and the crisis mean that we're not having the prevention conversation, because prevention doesn't allow us to knock the noughts off the spreadsheet now. It knocks the noughts off the spreadsheet in 10 years' time, and nobody thinks long term, whether that's local or central government politicians. So I want us to be better as a sector at telling the prevention story. What the invest save argument is that if we spend the money actually up the tracks with a 18-year-old young person coming out of the care system, we might save 40 grand a year because they don't go to prison. We might save 50 grand over a decade because they don't have to claim benefits, etc., etc.
Yeah, just like someone's health, you want to prevent everything as early as possible.
And it shouldn't have to be an economic argument. It should be the right thing to do.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for coming and joining Phil and I today. It has been an absolute pleasure, and I am so excited for you guys to come into Petford Food Bank. I think it's going to be awesome and make a really big difference in this town. So thank you so much for taking the time. We hope that you will join us in 2 weeks' time when we will be here. I've got to get this right, with the Nourishing Norfolk Network Coordinator. That is a mouthful. And we're going to be talking all things community supermarket. So that's going to be awesome. So we hope that you will join us in 2 weeks' time. See you then.